Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
Hey, Craig.
Hey, Jeff. Yeah. This is Podcast versus Everyone. I'm Craig. This is Jeff. With me is Jeff. Obviously, we're not as jovial at the start as we usually are, because we got to talk about some sadness in the Cougar family today. From last week, Bryce Beekman, redshirt senior, would-be safety, passed away, which I'm sure anyone who listens to this podcast already knows. Obviously, the second death of a player in just over 2 years in the program. Man, it's been really tough, Jeff. It's been tough news to handle.
Yeah, so it actually had happened a little bit before we started recording last week's episode, but the news didn't start kind of getting around until later in the night. And so we had, we were recording our episode of, rewatching the Oregon State game, during which Bryce Beekman had an interception. But, so that kind of went down, and, and then I didn't feel like staying up. I was tired. A lot of times I'll stay up and mix the episode and get it uploaded to our server and everything and get it published to the, to the podcast feed. I didn't do that. I went to bed, and that was at about 10:30. And when I woke up the next morning, I had a bunch of messages on my phone, like, do you know what happened? Do you know what happened? And I'm like, I have no idea what we're talking about. And then of course I went on Slack and saw that it was Beekman who had died. I know you, unfortunately, had stayed up late after we finished recording.
Yeah, I was up. I was, watching TV or whatever, and I just, I remember I think I watched another episode of something, and I was about to go to bed, and I was like, oh, one more. And then after that one ended, I hadn't been looking at my phone because I was watching TV, but I checked my phone and just saw, people retweeting these ominous tweets from players.
And we recognize those tweets now, where it's like, oh yeah, we know what that is because we've seen that before.
Yep, I definitely remember that from 2 years ago, and it's basically the same way the news came out, and then someone on Twitter passed along the news to me, via direct message, and it was really tough, just to think about another family, another Cougar family dealing with this again. Beekman's mom and dad and brother, and just the Cougar, the football team family dealing with this again. So many players on the team who lost a teammate 2 years ago, losing a teammate again. This is not a normal thing. These are 18 to 22-year-old men. 18 to 22-year-old men don't die in regular circumstances. So it's just to have this happen again. It's just, it's crazy to think about, and we have a whole new coaching staff coming in. The first thing that happens is they lose a player, and you have a team to work with that you frankly don't really know that well yet, and you have the team spread out throughout the country, not being able to come together in person because of the coronavirus, of course. Most players, as we talked about with when we had John from the basketball team on a couple weeks ago, the players just didn't even come back from spring break, basically, because all the classes are online. Of course, Beekman was in Pullman. He went home to Louisiana to where his mom lives, and then came back. I think to watch his brother played basketball, who's going to UVA to play for Tony Bennett next year. But he had come back from that, obviously, and had been back for a week or so, and then obviously passed away, which is, I can't even imagine what his family is going through, and then what his teammates are going through again.
It's definitely not ideal that all the players are spread all over the country. I mean, I know that, when Tyler died, they obviously brought the team together pretty quickly, and did, for sort of lack of a better term, did some immediate triage, right, of the, the immediate wounds. Instead, now, these guys are spread all over the country. They're back at their homes. They're with their families, and maybe with their families is a good place to be. But my guess is probably they'd like to be around each other a little bit right now, and obviously not allowed to do that at the moment. So just kind of a very strange facet of this tragedy is that aspect. The story of Beekman's death, in a lot of ways would have been, kind of the center of really everything that was going on, sports wise in the WSU world. And right now most people just aren't paying much attention to sports or thinking much about sports.
Right.
I'll fully admit right away that this, slipped off my radar pretty quickly. Not that I wasn't, feeling a certain way about it or anything like that, but, with everything that's going on with, obviously with the virus and being at home and just kind of worrying about maybe what that's going to be like. It maybe was a little too easy for it to sort of slide to the side. And that's a shame because, he was obviously a young man who was well liked by his teammates. Theo Lawson wrote a nice story just, with people talking about how he always had a smile and he was always greeting people. And, something I didn't know was that, the football was maybe not his primary objective originally. He was, going to go to a school for academics and, was encouraged to pursue football, and that's how he ended up at a junior college. I think, the assumption is always, someone goes to a junior college and it's because their academics aren't in order. I mean, we've all seen Last Chance U, right? And that doesn't seem to have been the case with Beekman. So, it's interesting the things you learn about a guy when, only after something awful has happened, but he seemed like a really genuine person, a guy who was well liked and well loved by his teammates. And not that any young death isn't a tragedy, but in this case, it seems like he really did have kind of everything going for him and everything in front of him.
Yeah, you mentioned Theo's story. What stuck out to me was you talking about academics, how he would. Aesop Winston would talk about how they had the classes that were on opposite sides of the campus, which we've all had, I think, at least once.
Yep.
So we know that when you got 5 or 10 minutes to walk across the entire campus, it's not easy. But they're talking about how he would rush to do it because he didn't want to miss class, and that's just not that's not the stereotype of a football player. Let's be honest. And then the talking about him blaring his music and which is I think that that's like a quintessential college thing. You just walk around and someone's just doing their own thing, and probably makes it a better atmosphere overall. But just to have someone playing their music, and it sounded like he didn't really care if he was if people were giving him looks, he'd just turn it up louder, is what they said. So yeah, it's unfortunate. Obviously, I didn't know one. I probably didn't know one single personal fact about Bryce before he passed, which is unfortunate. He was just, if you had to say something about him, you'd be like, he's a JUCO safety from Louisiana, and that's what you know about him. Like, I didn't even know about his brother going to play for Tony Bennett until after he passed. So it's really unfortunate. It makes you think about all the kids. It really makes you think about all the kids on the team and how they're all individuals and with their own stories and how sometimes we kind of just view them as the football player and view them, with how many tackles and how many interceptions and things like that, when obviously their teammates and their family look at them a lot differently.
Yep. It's a shame that it takes this happening for us to learn, really learn some things about him. Definitely, probably, I assume part of that was that, his unit did not perform real well on the football field last year. And, maybe sometimes we need a reminder that the people who play on the field are real people, right? And not that we ever totally forget, but sometimes that comes into really, clear view, and something like this sort of reminds you that, what an interesting person is playing back there. And I know that, you and I think kind of had the same thought after we found out about the news and we had just recorded the episode. We kind of wished we had hyped up his interception against Oregon State a little bit more, right, as we were watching the Oregon State game, because that was a pretty big play, as it turned out, in that game when we needed every single point we could get. So I know he would have played a pretty big role on the team in the fall. I know he would have, been a pretty huge factor, and it's just sad and disappointing that he's going to go. I know that it's really hard not having any answers as to what happened. I know that I think you and I went to the same place right away when we heard about it. And as I imagine, probably a lot of fans did. Just kind of thinking about Tyler and suicide, and wondering if that had happened again. It does not seem to have happened again. They didn't see, the police said they didn't see any signs of that sort of thing, but they won't be able to make any kind of official determination for a couple of months, because it takes that amount of time to get toxicology reports back. I think, people who are used to watching Law and Order SVU or CSI, right, kind of expect those things to be done really fast. Doesn't happen that way in the real world. Takes quite a bit of time to figure out what was going on. And so, for whatever that's worth, I don't know if that's, neither here nor there, but I do know that my first thought was, man, if that was what happened again to some of the guys on that team, to have to go through that twice, I was thankful that was not, at least immediately, not immediately an option. So,
yeah, but whether it's the cause of death, whether it, whatever it is, it's still they lost a teammate again. They lost a friend again. Yep. And like you said, again, there's a family far, far away that lost a son and a brother. And we obviously, you know the Helinskys very well, and they've talked about it a lot too. Just and I think it carries over somewhat to no matter the cause of death, but just the helplessness of your son or daughter being across the country, and you have no idea what happened in those last moments of their life, and where what, or even that last week of their life or anything, and all you find, basically, you just find out one early morning that they've passed, and so it's I can't imagine how hard that could be, and then obviously with the players again, these guys have definitely went through some shit in their the guys that are basically sophomores that came in early to seniors, now I've lost two teammates, and the athletic department, which has been mostly intact in that time too, lost someone. And so it's just really shitty, man. Like I'm glad you said that about it kind of falling off the radar faster than it normally would. I've been thinking about that a lot too, particularly when we were getting ready to record this, because it's been several 5 or 6 days since it happened at this point. And I was thinking about that earlier today, how it wasn't something that I was crossing my mind constantly. I mean, obviously I'd see it places, but not something I was considering as much as when Tyler died. And I think just because what's going on in the world, and how it impacts your own family and stuff, we're all a bit distracted right now, and we're all trying to, I think, be a bit distracted from bad news. And so I think maybe our brains kind of protect us a little bit in that way, from taking in too much, because obviously it just feels shitty to think about, and there's no good of it. When someone 22 dies, there's very little silver lining. It's mostly about what they could have done and who they could have been, and obviously we do talk about who he was, and that almost just makes it even sadder when you talk about what he had accomplished, and because then you're sit left wondering about the potential of someone's life. And it's tough. And obviously in this, where the world is facing death in the face right now quite a bit, and then we have a death that happened to this kind of WSU family again. And I don't know, I'm just going to keep rambling if you don't cut me off, Jeff.
Yeah, I guess couple last thoughts as we wrap it up. One thing is, I feel on the one hand, it really, really, really stinks that the coaching staff is brand new. They don't know any of these guys, and so providing the resources to them, the support to them that they're going to need as they work through the death of another teammate. Again, for some of these guys who've been around, it's 2 teammates they've lost. On the one hand, that there aren't any established relationships there, that the coaching staff is brand new, does make things more difficult. However, I do feel like Nick Rolovich is a good person to lead this. Yes. That's not, that's not an aspersion on Leach or anything like that. It's just if we had to have a new coach, and that new coach had to lead a team through something like this, Rolovich seems to be a guy who can do that. I've joked a little bit on Twitter and on our Slack that Nick Rolovich might be. I'm not convinced that Nick Rolovich is actually real, that he might actually be just, some kind of method actor who's trying to be like the perfect representation of a Wazoo coach. But, with sort of everything that's happened, with the virus and shutting things down, and he's just had the proper response to everything at every point. With the virus, where a lot of coaches might be tempted to be a little bit myopic about their world. He has said, this isn't, losing football practices is not a big deal. Like, we just need to keep people safe and healthy and happy. Right. And then he's, of course, trotting around Pullman, buying pizzas and whatever for people. So that gives me a lot of faith that when it comes time to put the pieces together here for the football team, he's going to be able to do it right. I mean, he, from the time that he showed up, he was preaching family. I know that was, that's a real strong ethos of the islands, where he spent, so much of his life. Mm-hmm. And so I have a lot of faith that he'll be able to kind of pick this up and put it back together. And, not that necessarily he's going to be able to turn into a winning season next year, because I don't think that's neither here nor there nor, related. But in terms of the mental well-being of the players, which is sort of the thing that's foremost on my mind right now.
Right.
I think that he will be excellent at supporting them in whatever way a football coach can support them. And, hopefully WSU has mobilized those things. And I mean, let's be honest, this is a time when mental health can get pretty fragile for some people. The weight of the whole specter of the coronavirus can weigh pretty heavily on people. I know I find myself mentally drained. I mean, I went to Costco tonight, and by the end of that, I was mentally exhausted as I'm like looking around and making sure to steer clear of people. And even just like the fact that I went to Costco and it was practically empty. And yet that in and of itself was causing me some mental strain. Like, this is just so like everything is so unusual and so weird. And I worry especially about, people who might be alone in this time, just kind of holed up in their apartment or whatever by themselves, as they socially distance from other people. I guess I just can't say this loudly enough. If you need to talk to someone or you're feeling a certain way, man, reach out and talk to someone. And I know Craig and I will both throw this out there. Like, please, if you have nobody else to talk to one of us. Hit me up on Twitter, coogcenter@gmail.com, podcastversuseveryone@gmail.com, @the_Craig_Powers. I promise you, we will be a listening ear for anybody who might need it, might be feeling a little bit down during this time, because this is heavy, man. It's heavy and it's scary, and it could take a real toll on your mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on top of that, our players, our team, and Bryce's family have to deal with the loss of a loved one. So, which I know, hopefully not too many of us, but obviously some of us already have, and probably many of us more will have to deal with in the coming months. But I think maybe we can maybe just take a little moment here, and then we'll take a break. I know you're not going to want an ad blasted in your ear,
but one's coming anyway.
But one's coming. We're sorry. We'll take a break, and rest in peace, Bryce Beekman, 22.
And we're back.
Okay, so that was rough. We actually had to do it 3 times because of some technical issues. It's a tough time, as Jeff was talking about. If you'll kind of forgive us, we're gonna try to keep it lighter the rest of the podcast. It's not out of disrespect for Bryce or anything. It's more of just I don't think anyone wants to listen to us drone on about that for another hour. So please forgive us. If you don't want to hear us laugh and joke, again, feel free to turn it off now. I wouldn't blame you. But we're just going to kind of go on and do our normal podcast now, because I don't know about you, Jeff, but it's just getting a little heavy on me now.
It is getting a little heavy. Beer typically lightens the mood a little bit.
Yeah, for those of us that are fortunate enough for it to do that. What are you drinking tonight?
Well, I stopped by my favorite tap room that I've mentioned many times on the podcast, Rainier Growlers, out here in Puyallup. Picked up a few growler fills, crowler fills. So tonight I am drinking a beer from a brewery that I have never had beer from before. I'm sure you have. It's from Ruse Brewing.
Yep.
So this is the Endless Skies IPA, and it is, I don't quite know how to describe it. As everybody who listens to this podcast knows, I'm not always great at describing the flavors of my beer, but I will say this. This is a really interesting and unique beer. It's just got a really different kind of flavor to it, and it's really, really good. So I wish I had better words, but I do
it's
highly recommend it.
an IPA, you said?
It is.
And it's
Not hazy.
Not hazy. Nice
Not
clean
hazy. Yeah.
one. I'm also drinking a clean IPA, a West Coast IPA, if you will.
There we go.
I feel like they're slowly and surely making a comeback, and I'm sort of welcoming it at this point. It's nice to mix in the different styles of IPA. It seems like we were getting overloaded with hazies, and I've kind of been reminded lately that I do like they were like one of my first loves in craft beer, and now I'm back to liking the clean IPAs again. But this one is called You Should Smile More. It is brewed at Rubens, but it's a Ballard Boots collaboration. What that references is the Pink Boots Society, which is it's a nonprofit basically supporting women in craft beer and women in beer in general. But obviously the craft beer is a big part of it. Just because obviously if you've just been around craft beer, obviously it's a very male dominated thing. And I know in talking to female friends who are either bartenders or brewers or just beer nerds like me, they just it's a whole different experience for them based on the way that they are treated by the patrons, by the people running the industry, all that. And I really thought the You Should Smile More name was a great name, and it's just got all these little memes of
That's hilarious.
non-smiling memes all over the can. So it's a cool Pink Boots Society is a cool thing. Obviously, I know I've been talking to a lot of friends that just at times feel pretty isolated if they're a woman at working at a craft beer shop or working at a brewery, or I have so many beer nerd friends where they're in a relationship and the woman is the huge beer nerd and the guy is just on the one that's being forced to come to the brewery so that she can get 2 extra bottles or whatever, but it's always the assumption that the wife is along with to get the extra bottles or whatever,
right.
and or it's always these, you see it, and I'm guilty of it. I've been in the past as well. So when you're talking about the beers, you automatically draw yourself to the man in the relationship and not the woman, and often it's either like I've got a couple friends that are both really into beer, like a man and a woman, and then I have friends where it's just the guy and just basically like me, where I'm really into beer and Amanda isn't, but she likes the beer, but she doesn't care about it beyond that. And then you have it where it's actually the other way around, where the women, and obviously that the tendency is to just assume my situation is everyone's situation, but so that's what they deal with, and bartenders just getting a different sort of vibe from than a male bartender would get, and then brewers, there's few female brewers. It is on the rise, but because there have been some highlighting successful female brewers. One was I can't remember her name, but one of the prominent ones was the head brewer at Jester King for a while before she left. But I think you're seeing more and more women, because I know just from being in this hobby, there are plenty of women that are interested in it, and they just often don't feel like that they have a place. And so that's what Pink Boots is about. Let me get off my soapbox now. And then but I think You Should Smile More is just the real snarky type of it's You Should, and the official name is You Should in parentheses, then Smile More. But it's a West Coast clean IPA, very classic in execution. It's got the nice bitterness. It's got some pine on the nose and on the palate. So it kind of reminds me of some of those first IPAs that you you dealt with for when they started, those West Coast IPAs. So it's pretty damn tasty. Good job. So here, I'll read. So it's Reuben's in collaboration with Ballard Breweries, Bad Jimmy's, Fair Isle, Hales, Lagunitas, Lucky Envelope, Maritime, Pacific, Obeck, Peddler, Populux, Stoop, and Urban Family. So whenever there's that big of a collaboration day, it just meant they all spent the day drinking and like one person did the work. So
it's like that's the secret. We all got in a room together and had beer and threw all our names on it.
Yep. Pretty
I
much.
love that.
That's
funny. I did not put when you said it's you should smile more. I did not initially put together what that was in reference to. So that's hilarious. I love that.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Pretty clever.
Yeah,
pretty tasty. But yeah, that's the beer for this week. Man, not a lot of obviously other WSU athletics stuff to talk about, as no one is playing sports right now anywhere in the U.S.
at all.
At least. Yeah, at all.
Just on my Nintendo Switch, where I'm playing FIFA like a madman right now.
Yeah, there you go. I have been watching all sorts of old games, which I've quite enjoyed. I did watch the 97 Apple Cup today.
Yeah.
Just because I wanted to get, so we'll see. So thankfully that finally prevailed and won the Nick Rolovich's March Madness of Best Cougar Games tournament. I think the Final Four was pretty good in that, but so there were some upsets along the way that were kind of crazy. But yeah, the final pitted the 97 Apple Cup versus 92 Snowball Apple Cup as well. No surprises, 2 Apple Cups are in there. But it was kind of funny to me. There was probably a few too many votes for the 92 Snowball than there should have been, in my opinion. But thankfully,
shouldn't have been any. It should have been 100% to 0%.
Yeah.
Sorry, people.
Sorry. I don't know. Like, for me, the one that I've experienced as a Coug in person or as a Coug would be the game day game. But you can't my only memory of the 97 Apple Cup when it happened was I remember the end. I remember watching with my dad, watching the end, and what I mostly remember is there's still being time on the clock and WSU is celebrating, and I was like, what? And I wasn't a Cougar. I probably was more of a Husky fan because they were on TV more, but I wasn't a Cougar. I wasn't rooting for either team in the game. I thought it was cool that WSU was winning and going to the Rose Bowl. That's, as just a kid from the state, I thought that was cool. But I remember thinking when there was still time on the clock and they were celebrating, and I was getting nervous for them. So I think I was destined to be a Coug at that point.
Yeah.
Because even I watched the game today, and they're doing all that celebrating when it's 41-28 and UW scores with like 6 seconds left or whatever it is,
right?
And then you just see like Mike Price's like demeanor change, like like every good football coach,
right,
always thinking about how the worst possible thing can still happen.
Well, and not any old football coach, the football coach at Washington State. Let's just be real about that.
Yeah. And so, so I was like, yep, that's the feeling that I remember. But then, what is a cool thing is I did not experience this as a Coug in person, but man, when that game was over and you see all the Cougs rushing Husky Stadium and all the Cougs celebrating going to the Rose Bowl, I was getting tears in my eyes. Like, and so even as me who did not experience that from a first person as a Coug, like, still, if you are a Coug, you should watch it and you should listen to these podcasts this week from Coug Center Hour, because it's an incredible game to cap, not cap, but to be as part of like the most incredible season. And I'll let you talk, Jeff.
Yeah, it was. As I made clear on the Coug Center Hour, part of that mega cast with Kyle Sherwood and PJ Kendall and Scott Cresswell. Yeah, that game was really one of the great days of my life, which sounds super overdramatic, but I really don't know any other way to describe it, to be honest. Everything that you said about, you sort of welling up with emotion, seeing all the Cougars streaming onto the field. I was out there, so I remember all that. I still sort of feel all that. The joy of the players and of Mike Price and just the experience of it all. I was just glad that eventually won the Cougar Madness bracket, because I was getting worried there for a little while. First of all, okay, so the 97 Apple Cup was the number 4 seed. If I'm looking at the bracket here, the Apple Cup was the number 4 seed, and it had to start off against its own Rose Bowl game. So the Apple Cup against the Rose Bowl for a first round matchup, which is sort of like that, that death matchup in the NCAA tournament where it's sort of like mid-major on mid-major violence or something like that. Basically you get the heavyweight matchup right away. 5-12 when it's, so it won that, and then it had to face the 2012 Apple Cup, which somehow beat the 1988 at UCLA game, which was
the great travesty of the tournament.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so I was not a Coug in 1988. I was 11 years old. I was, a loud and stupid Husky fan. And even I am like, that's insane to not vote for that 1988 game. They went to UCLA, they played the number 1 team in the country and beat them. Like that's a big damn deal.
Troy Aikman.
Yeah, anyway, so, and it actually wasn't even that close, right? Like they don't have the percentages up here on the bracket, but my recollection is that it wasn't that close. It was like 52% or 53%, which of course sounds really close, but isn't actually that close. And so, the 2012 Apple Cup won there. So I was sweating a little bit that the 97 Apple Cup might have a little bit of a tough time against the 2012 Apple Cup, given what happened the previous round. But apparently, people knew enough there. And then the 97 Apple Cup also had to take on the 2018 game day game against Oregon, which
hell of a bracket it went through.
Yeah, which was the number 1 overall seed. I might take umbrage with that to begin with, but that's okay. So defeated that, and then of course went on to defeat the Snow Bowl in the championship. So it's I don't know that there are any other games that I would consider a travesty in here, but I do think that if I could say this, I think it was a really cool concept, not just for fans, but if I could project a little bit onto our new coach, Rolovich, I do think that he used this as an opportunity to sort of, number 1, connect with fans, which we know he likes to do. But I think also, like, one thing he has appeared really invested in is learning about the environment and the culture at Washington State. And I honestly think he used this as a vehicle to kind of learn some history about the program, learn some of the more, learn about what's, significant, important to fans, and just kind of learn about some of these games. And I'm sure he was able to, watch video of these games as, doesn't have a whole lot else to do right now. And kind of learn some things about the history of the program. So, this isn't a situation where, Mike Leach came in and needed to really clean house and start over and wanted to establish his own culture and really had no use for the history of the program. I think Rolovich is pretty invested in the idea of, hey, this is a place with history and we want to connect with that history.
Yeah. And I think what he hopefully took away is that Coug fans are thirsty for some Apple Cups. So,
I know, man. Oh my God!
By
if
the
he
way,
took nothing else away from it, that is the lesson.
Yeah, 2 Apple Cups.
Beat Washington, you're a hero forever.
Yeah, I found the Twitter poll results. 2012 Apple Cup, 51.7%. on 2,199 votes. So you can do the math. They had a lot more votes than, so the previous day was 2002 USC versus 2003 at Oregon. And the Apple Cup UCLA matchup had a 1,010 more votes in it than that other one. So it was definitely a contested one. I think it got shared a lot more. People were getting a little riled up, but still
and it's right in that wheelhouse of Twitter users, right? The 2012, and you know, if you're of a certain age, you're kind of right in that area. So,
I think another one that some people weren't too happy about, which I don't really. I mean, obviously, I was at one, and the other one was the year before I went to WSU, was 2017 USC crushed 2002 USC.
Yeah.
Which one was vital in sending WSU to a Rose Bowl, and the other was really fun. So I don't...
Yeah, that one, I could see that. I mean, I don't know about crushed, but I could see that one, where it's like, again, you know, recency plays into all of this, of course. Mm-hmm. And that 2002 USC game, though, that was a pretty bananas game, though. It didn't have quite the same hype that, you know, going into it maybe that this one did, even though, and I know somebody's listening to this going like, yeah, but both teams were, you know, ranked, WSU was whatever. Okay, yes, all of that is true. However, the media environment that we live in today versus the media environment then, not even remotely the same. And so the way that one, the 2017 USC was hyped up, and the Friday night game and all that stuff, it was a pretty big game. So I could see where people would you know, go for that over maybe 2002 USC. And again, you have to be of a certain age to remember the 2002 USC game, which, you know, just kind of makes me laugh because that was after I got out of college and it was almost 20 years ago. So, yeah. Oops. I'm old. It's okay.
Another thing. So the 97 Apple Cup went up against the 2012 Apple Cup, and 26.7% of people voted for the 2012 Apple Cup.
Yeah. Losers. All of them.
Maybe some Huskies infiltrated the vote.
Maybe. That's possible. I don't know. It's possible.
Nick Rolovich's Hawaii followers were like, 2012 sounds good.
Could have been, but yeah, it was a cool deal. I'm glad he did it. And, you know, kind of gave people a chance to, you know, reminisce and engage with the coach a little bit. And like I said, I'm sure it gave him an opportunity to learn some things about our fans and about what actually matters to us, and you know, learn some things about some of the great teams and players in the program's history.
Right.
Hopefully, we'll be. You know, I know that. You know, again, Mike Leach didn't really have a whole lot of use for people in the past, but. And again, that's not a criticism. That's who he is. That's his personality. And that's part of what it took to reshape the culture, right? I mean, he had to sort of leave everything in the dust and forge ahead with his vision for the program. But I think the program's in a place now where, you can sort of comfortably look back, and maybe we can finally do something that we should have done all along, which is rename something after Mike Price. Cause that has to happen. Like I don't know. I think the easy thing is, you know, Mike Price Field at Martin Stadium or something like that. But we got to do something for that guy, because that's the idea that we have not really honored him in any kind of really meaningful or permanent way is sort of insane. He took us to 2 Rose Bowls. You know, led the school to the greatest what is still the greatest season in program history. Really goes down as one of the great offensive minds, offensive innovators in, you know, college football history. Like I don't. There's not really any way to like sugarcoat that. Like that's what he was, and that's what he is. He was a great spread offense innovator, the single back spread offense. So, I hope this paves the way maybe for him to get his due a little bit, and not that, you know, I don't know Mike Leach well enough to know all of the reasons why he sort of didn't really he kind of wanted to keep the past at arm's length. But, Rolovich definitely seems like a guy who would not feel intimidated or maybe put in a shadow or anything like that by bringing in some of these personalities a little bit closer to the program. So, again, I look forward to the day that we can honor Mike Price for the accomplishments, for putting together, again, the 97 season, the 2002 season, and really being the architect of, the 2003 season, which of course was Bill Doba's first season as head coach, but was, again, Mike Price was sort of the architect of all that. So, we need to honor that guy. Maybe we need to start a campaign at Coug Center. Maybe that's how we could use our, all of our time off right now.
Yeah. It's, and I think, to add one little point to that is, Pat Chun would be probably, he seems to be, he values, the past and what has happened in the past where WSU has been successful in the past. So, I mean, if it's ever going to happen, right.
Yeah.
Mike Price, beer, stand, be fine with me. I don't care. Just so that they have beer on the concourse would be great.
Mike Price something. Yeah.
Dude. I'm glad it was really because you guys did those podcasts this week, and I'm excited to listen to the second one.
It was so much fun. I can't even tell you how much fun that was. If people who are listening to this, please go listen to those.
You guys can tell. I mean, I could tell that you guys were having a blast, and Michael does a great job playing the kind of the moderator, and which
Michael was awesome.
A very if anyone's ever tried to moderate a panel or anything, it's an incredibly difficult thing to do and keep a flow of conversation going, and he did a great job with that. Highly recommend. The first episode came out on Monday. It's a two-parter because it took 3 hours to talk about. Well, the second part is only about the Apple Cup.
2 games about the Apple Cup and the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, but I'm excited to hear that one. I sat on my couch and listened to it. That's how we listen to podcasts these days.
Because nobody's driving anywhere.
Yeah. So although I drove to Seattle today.
How dare you?
Because Fremont did an online release of their barrel-aged barley wine. It always follows their 1,000th batch. So brew 1,000, brew 2,000, brew 3,000, and this one was brew 4,000. They basically just dropped it on us suddenly. I barely got in. I think I was one of the last people to get a slot, and so they had some pickup. You could do either wait till later, but that was sold out, or you could just pick a slot to come in and get the beer because they didn't want everyone coming in to get the beer all at once, obviously. So. I had a slot this evening, or this early evening, to go up to Seattle. So that's where I was able to stop by Fair Isle Brewing and get some of this You Should Smile More. But I was able to listen to some podcasts then, so that was nice. It was nice to be back in the podcast groove. What else, man? What else is there? What else is there in the world?
Well, let's see. Schools are going to have quite the dilemma on their hands with their spring seniors who have been granted an extra year of eligibility by the NCAA.
Yep.
That's going to be because when all this whole thing went down and all these, baseball players and track athletes and, all those people, basically had their season wiped out after a month. Everybody went, oh, they should get another season of eligibility, which now they have, which is great, except that creates some accounting issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously teams have limits on the scholarships they can give, and the spring sports especially are, it's not like there's far fewer than in football and in basketball. For example, in baseball, for that whole team, I think it's like 12 and a half or something scholarships. Like I may be totally off on that, but it's not like there's 25 baseball players and they have 25 scholarships or whatever. So it becomes even more difficult because you got kids that have partial scholarships. You have kids that have, you have your prime players that have full scholarships. And then you have other sports where they have similar, limits on scholarships. So it's cross country. I don't know. Is cross country a fall sport though? I don't even know. The track ones are hard. Yeah.
Yes, I believe that's right.
Yeah. But yeah, let me find. Baseball is 11.7. So.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not. So you think of how big a baseball team is. Basketball has 13. Baseball is 11.7. What else is in the fall? Do you got or in the spring? Track and field.
Yep. So
right?
track, and then golf. Golf's kind of weird because I think golf splits seasons because of the weather, but I think that may be spring. So.
Yeah, I think it would qualify because they're losing half their season or whatever.
Right. So that's another one. I'm not sure. Let me look. Hold on. This makes for great radio right here as I wait for the WSU website to load up.
WSU has very few sports, as we know.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, tennis was in the fall, I think, or winter. No, wait.
Yep.
Yes.
No,
tennis was in the fall.
Tennis is in the fall.
Tennis was in the fall. Rowing was in the fall. So I think it's mostly track and golf and baseball.
Yeah, because we don't have softball.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's it. But yeah, I mean, it's going to create, a real situation. So part of the ruling was, okay, yes, you can. Seniors can have an extra year of eligibility, but, there hasn't been any adjustment at all to the number of scholarships that you're allowed to give out. So there's going to be some seniors where it's going to be like, yeah, you're welcome to come back, but you don't have a scholarship.
And plus, you have a lot of schools on the lower levels that wouldn't be able to afford to offer the extra scholarships. Anyway.
Correct. And I'm sure that's why they did it. Yeah. I'm sure there will be, some accounting that takes place, with, programs a lot of times have people who, either players who don't show up or whatever in the fall, and, that creates an open scholarship. But it's, it's going to be a little weird. It's going to be a little bit of a crunch, and there are going to be some hard feelings out of this deal. There are going to be some coaches saying, okay, well, yeah, you're welcome back, but I don't have a scholarship for you because I've promised it to, so-and-so. So, it's going to be rough. It's not fair, but as much as callous as this sounds, as I tell my students, life ain't fair. And that sounds horrible, but it's true. It wasn't fair when my kid got cancer. It's not fair when you don't get your senior year, but, that's life. Stuff happens, and I know that sounds terrible and very cold and, like I said, very callous, but that's the truth. And it sucks, and we wish everything could be fair. And yes, the NCAA does have the ability to say, hey, let's give you a temporary waiver for extra scholarships. But, as we know, the NCAA is not, as interested in student athlete welfare as it claims to be. And so that's going to be the deal. Probably some programs are going to be able to get a little bit creative, maybe with academic scholarships, maybe like the Ivy League does or something like that. But
yeah.
But there's going to be some hard feelings here where there's going to be more people with scholarships and less with or more people wanting scholarships than there are scholarships. And that's going to go across all of the NCAA. What I am interested in, maybe we'll see, I wonder if they'll be treated, as grad transfers for that purpose. I haven't seen that. Was that in there? Do you know?
I don't recall. But,
okay. That's the one thing I'm sort of curious about, because that may be that may be a way for some of those people to, continue to stay on scholarship and move. Not that people necessarily want to move to a new school, but that may be an opportunity to do that. And or maybe it's much ado about nothing too, because you mentioned that baseball uses partial scholarships, and maybe a lot of those seniors only had a small partial scholarship to begin with, and so becoming a full walk-on maybe isn't that big of a shift. So it's tough to say.
And one thing to point out is that if the senior maybe had a 25% scholarship, they can't decide that, like, they can't convince him to come back by giving him more than that, or they can't you can only get the same level of scholarship that you were getting the year before, which is an interesting add-on, because we see walk-ons in like basketball and football get awarded scholarships. So would that mean a senior walk-on maybe couldn't be awarded, or does it not matter because they weren't on scholarship to begin with? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, really.
I don't know if that happens as much but obviously in baseball and other sports, you have more walk-ons. It seems there's more opportunity for someone to earn a scholarship, but maybe it's just not something that gets publicized as much because they're not as the popular sports, or the televised sports and things like that. But it's probably going to be easier math for WSU than some other schools, because WSU has pretty much the bare minimum of spring sports as you can have. I guess Oregon didn't have baseball for a long time, but they do now. But WSU doesn't have softball, which would be another big one.
Yep.
I mean, it's what you say, the right thing to do, right? But that doesn't mean it's easy. Like, it's, sure, give them the year back, whatever. It doesn't mean you're going to get it back. I think the NCAA was just under a lot of, and I think we're seeing them more and more in the era of Twitter fall into the pressures of what people are saying. And there was definitely a very big groundswell of support for not even just giving the spring sports, who had their entire season canceled almost. Like maybe they would have played, the baseball team played 10 games or, whatever. They played a few series. And but there was some people even saying that the basketball should get another chance because they didn't get to finish their season in the tournament or whatever. What do you think about that?
Say that again. Sorry, I was looking at something. I was trying to figure out if they were going to allow free transfers. What was the question again? I know Jeff wasn't listening. It's a classic. Jeff wasn't listening. Go ahead.
Okay, so there was not only this groundswell of support for spring athletes getting that year of eligibility back, but there was even as far as much as people advocating for winter athletes.
Yeah, that was crap. That was crap. Yeah, no, that's a bad idea. That, again, life ain't fair. Things suck sometimes. And I know that, I mean, I have the perspective of a 43-year-old man, so that's a little bit different than a 20-whatever-year-old student. So obviously, take it, for whatever that's worth. But there was no sympathy for me whatsoever in, there was no fiber in me that was like, really we should give Jeff Pollard, an 8th year of eligibility. Like that wasn't something that ever crossed my mind. It does suck. It sucks. It's unfortunate. But there were lots of winter athletes whose seasons were already over, know? So what are you going to do? You're going to let them play another year? I mean, it didn't make a lot of sense. And,
if your team is still technically alive and whatever their tournament is, then you're allowed to come back for an entire season.
Right. Right. And I mean, and that's, and by the way, that's assuming they all want to come back. Right. I mean, that's, and I think that's the part that, that fans sometimes miss out on. There are a lot of players that choose to not continue. You see this in football all the time, especially football is the biggest one because it just demands the most out of the players. But, every year in the spring and then every year in the fall, there's a look at the roster, right? Coug Fan does these religiously where they look at the roster and who's not on the roster, right? Who was on the team that's not on the roster anymore. And inevitably there's a handful of guys. It's 5, 6, 7 guys every year who were on the roster at the end of the season. They were on the roster in the spring, and then fall rolls around and all of a sudden where'd they go? Right. And it's just a number of guys who just decide it's not worth it anymore. They don't want to keep doing it anymore. They just have decided that they don't want to do it. Now, most of the time it's guys who are not on full scholarship, walk-ons, and those guys tend to be the ones that, typically decide, okay, it's not worth it to get the shit beat out of me anymore for no scholarship. But being a football walk-on's like the hardest thing in the world because you have to do everything that everybody else does except without the scholarship. And so, some of those guys just decide they can't do it anymore. And sometimes scholarship guys decide that too. They just decide, I've had enough. I can't really do this anymore. So I think there's this assumption that everybody wants to come back and work really, really hard for another year and they don't want to get on with their life. That's not always the case for a lot of people. I mean, if you said to Jeff Pollard, right after everything that's gone on, okay, we're going to give you another year of eligibility. You want to come back, play another year of basketball? I mean, he'd probably say yes, but I'll bet it wouldn't be automatic. I'll bet he wouldn't go, oh yeah, for sure, I want to do that. Like he would think all the weightlifting sessions and all the training tables and all the video sessions and whatever. Now he seems like a guy who really would love to have that opportunity to play with his teammates some more. But I'll bet there's a lot of seniors that would go, especially ones that don't have any professional future. I mean, listen, after 4 years at Wazoo, I know for me, like I loved every minute of my time that I spent in Pullman, and I was ready to be done. Like I was ready to get on with the next phase of my life, and athletes aren't any different. Like they are people just like the rest of us. And so, I think there will probably be, you'll probably see a lot of these seniors in these spring sports. I'll bet a lot of them do want to come back, but I'll bet there's a lot more than people think that just decide to, I've done it. I've been there. I'm not going to play professional baseball. It's time.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to watch. I'd love to talk about the impact on WSU's baseball team that this has, but honestly, they played like hardly any games, and I don't really know that much about the team because they didn't play very much this year. So it's I'm not going to pretend that I know what I'm talking about there. So I don't know about you, Jeff. Do you have any thoughts on how this might impact the baseball team?
No, I mean, just beyond, if they do get those seniors back, that's probably a net benefit. You combine it with the freshmen that are coming in, that's probably a good thing for the program. I just, I don't know that it has any huge, material impact on what Brian Green is doing, but, we'll see. I think what's going to be interesting is, if there are seniors who are going to be drafted, those guys are going to have a little bit of an interesting situation on their hands in terms of a decision, right? Do they come back or do they go ahead and head to minor league baseball? So, there's probably some of them that are going to think, if I played a whole season, could I one more season? Could I maybe get drafted? Baseball's a little bit different of a situation because so many guys get drafted, right? There's 50 rounds or whatever in all the levels of minor league baseball. So, I don't know, maybe there'll be some guys who decide like, hey, if I give it one more go, maybe I can wedge my way into a minor league career, draft selection, and try to do something there.
Well, in baseball, it's a little different. Usually you get drafted and then there's not really a delay. You can head to the team and play.
Yeah.
But who knows what this year will be like? Maybe they won't be playing, so maybe that factors into it as well.
I mean, they may not play any minor league games at all. for the rest of the season. So
yeah,
who knows?
So who knows? Yeah, man, I don't know. We're definitely not rich with topics at the moment.
We did pretty good though, man. We went over an hour on that.
Yeah. So we were begging for topics last week. I will never do that again. Just to bring it back to the start, but it was rough to talk about that at the start. Thank you guys for listening. We just, we had to talk about it, about Bryce Beekman's passing. Thank you for continuing to listen as we just screwed around talking about old football games again. And we will be doing that some more, I promise you. And if you really loved listening to talk about old football games, you definitely should check out that Cougar Center Hour on Monday, and then check out our last week's episode where we did a commentary track for the Oregon State game from this year, that 54-53 masterpiece. Go ahead, if you're sitting around your house, just find the stream and play us over it, and you'll get our insights for that hour. And just remember that we did not know that Bryce Beekman had passed away when we were recording.
We're going to have to get creative about stuff going forward, man.
Yeah, for sure. I think we can. We're hoping to have something really cool. Really hoping for that really cool thing in the coming weeks.
If you liked the interview last week with, or 2 weeks ago with John Andershek, we may have something. We're hoping to have something, crossing our fingers, to have something super cool like that in the future. So.
Yes. That will be one of the few benefits of the stay-at-home shutdown of the world. We might have some cool guests. So yeah. I think we did a fine job cranking that out. You also got 3 more hours of content on the feed this week.
That's right.
So you guys, I'm sure you guys are have plenty to listen to. But yeah.
And again, if you have never watched the 1997 Apple Cup, it's freely available on YouTube. You can find it.
Yeah, there's like 7 different full games on there. Like just
and watch the find the ABC broadcast, not the Rick Riz Fox. I don't know what it was called at the time. It wasn't Root Sports. I think it was Fox Sports, right?
At that point.
Yeah, the Fox Sports broadcast. Don't listen to that one. Listen to the actual ABC broadcast and watch that one. And watch that and then listen to the podcast that's going to drop on Friday. That is my recommendation on that one. So
yeah, and I found it when I searched for it today. The first one that comes up is the ABC. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Highly recommend.
Subscribe to us.
Yes. Send us emails.
Send us emails at podcastversuseveryone@gmail.com.
And I am trying. This is something I haven't talked to you about, but I have looked into trying to maybe get some T-shirts that are Podcast Versus Everyone branded. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I'm gonna try and work that one out.
So buy T-shirts from us eventually.
Yeah, someday.
Yeah. We already shouted out our Twitters and everything. So
yes.
Go Cougs, Jeff.
Go Cougs, Craig.